Introduction. Since the beginning of time, in our hopes of fully enjoying love's rewards, human beings have struggled to understand its mysteries. By the time I was 20, it had already become apparent to me that there was more to this thing called love than met the eye. I mean, the falling in love part, going from butterflies and sweaty palms to passion and euphoria in what seemed like an instant, was pretty easy and amazing. But it was the staying there and making it work part that was already tripping me up. I just didn't get it. Wasn't loving someone supposed to be fairly effortless? I wondered. Was there something I was missing or not getting? Was there something I was doing wrong? Not surprisingly, after a few failed attempts, but still hopeful I could crack the code, I landed in a psychotherapist's office. Thankfully, my therapist was a wise and caring older man sensitive to the human condition. A world traveler and lover of the arts, he had a penchant for sharing bits of poetry and literature with me in an effort to shed some light on my path. On one particular occasion, he shared something written by poet and novelist Rainer Maria Rilke. For one human being to love one another, that is perhaps the most difficult of all our tasks, the ultimate, the last test and proof, the work for which all other work is but preparation. These words struck a chord in me. Love, or loving well, is really hard. It takes work that requires so much of us personally. While it still wasn't clear to me just what kind of work I needed to do to be successful in love, Rilke's words helped me feel less alone. Not long after being introduced to that passage, I came across it on a greeting card, bought and framed it, and hung it in my various homes over the years. A supportive reminder as I attempted to understand just what was required of me to love and feel loved. Every day in my work as a psychologist, I meet with people struggling to make love work. I hear about relationships that seem to start off well with such hope and promise, but then go south. Those that are riddled with fighting, animosity, conflicts, or insecurity, and those that have become numbingly lifeless or distant over time. People describe feeling misunderstood, unappreciated, and put upon. They struggle to understand how they could go from once feeling happy with their partners to now being awash in a sea of confusion, disconnection, hopelessness, and despair. Some can't identify anything particularly awful about their relationships, but are troubled by a niggling sense that something's missing. Many of them have worked incredibly hard to make their relationships better, to do things differently, and get back on track. Some of them have even been in therapy before. But no matter how hard they've tried, they haven't been able to achieve any lasting success in their relationships. Invariably, they end up repeating the same patterns over and over again, patterns that get them nowhere. Sound familiar? If so, you're not alone. A recent study by the National Opinion Research Center at the University of Chicago found that relationship dissatisfaction is on the rise. More people are struggling to keep love alive than ever before. So, why do so many of us have a hard time? Based on the people I encounter in my life, both professionally and personally, my own life experience, and all the advances we've made in understanding how the human brain works, I've come to understand that, while our specific problems may differ, the underlying issue for most of us is the same. At the core of our struggles, festering beneath many layers of complaints, is a fear of being emotionally present and authentic in our relationships. We are afraid of being ourselves. Many of us are afraid to open up and step into our romantic relationships in a more honest and revealing way. Whether it's the ability to give or receive love, manage and express anger, sadness, or shame, or acknowledge the need for closeness and security, our capacity to be emotionally present with our partners is hijacked by fear. And it is fear that is keeping us from having the kinds of relationships we truly desire. But why are we afraid of being emotionally present and authentic in our relationships? The short answer is that our adult brains are still operating on wiring that was established in the first few years of our lives. Wiring that informs us how to be and, equally important, how not to be in the world. For many of us, this wiring is outdated and not applicable to present-day living. As the science of attachment has shown, early childhood experiences with our caregivers shape our emotional development and leave lasting imprints on the neural circuitry of our brains. When our caregivers are emotionally open and reliable, we develop the ability to balance and make good use of our emotions, calm and soothe ourselves, and emotionally relate to and connect with others. We develop a capacity to be emotionally present and engaged, essential components of healthy relationships. However, when our caregivers react negatively to our emotional needs, for instance, become frustrated when we feel afraid and need their reassurance, withdraw when we feel hurt and need to be soothed, or admonish us when we're angry and assert ourselves, we learn to fear expressing ourselves. Instead of feeling emotionally safe to explore our relationships with our caregivers in a way that fosters learning and growth, we become anxious and hold certain feelings back, adjusting our behaviors to avoid the danger of disconnection from our loved ones. In short, we suppress the feelings that threaten our sense of safety and security with our caregivers and amplify those that please them, and thus allow us to maintain some degree of connection. Over time, our potential to manage and express our feelings is compromised. Our emotional range becomes constricted, and the emergence and expression of our core self is thwarted, boxed in by the emotional parameters we had to adhere to as children. To make matters more difficult, these powerful lessons about emotion and connection are stored in the parts of our memory that are outside of our awareness. That is, they operate on an unconscious level and guide our behavior without us even knowing it. Left unchallenged, they persist into adulthood and directly affect the ways we respond to our feelings, how we perceive and interact with our partners, and what we reveal or conceal of ourselves. Instead of having a flexible repertoire of relationship skills, many of us enter into the world of adult relationships emotionally ill-equipped and conditioned to react in ways that might have been useful at one time, but now thwart real connection. Consequently, when certain feelings or needs arise in our present-day relationships, we react defensively, as though we're in real danger. We do everything we can to achieve some sense of safety. We develop patterns of being in the world that cover up what we truly feel inside. For example, instead of openly sharing how we feel or asking for what we need, we blame, criticize, or get demanding with our partners. Or conversely, we shut down, detach, and act as if we don't care, when deep down underneath the layers of our defenses, we really do care. We turn our partners into our latest remodeling project, or we try to mold ourselves into something seemingly more acceptable. Anything to feel internally and externally safe in the world. While our childhood threat of danger no longer exists, many of us unknowingly continue to respond to our emotions, relationship needs, and desires as if they're dangerous. We end up repeating the same defensive patterns over and over, patterns that get us nowhere, as if we had no other options. In order to protect ourselves, we get caught in circular arguments with our partners instead of taking the risk to share our hurt or fear. We minimize, deny, or hide our anger, pull away from our partners, and avoid being direct, and then end up feeling resentful, disinterested, or depressed. Or we fail to express the fullness of the love in our hearts, and then can't understand why our partners complain about feeling frustrated, alone, and unsure of our love. Instead of loving like we really mean it, we move ahead on autopilot, at the mercy of our old brain wiring. Without a clue, we wonder why we're having such a hard time, why our relationships aren't more satisfying, and why we don't feel more connected. We ask ourselves, is this as good as it gets? Only when we recognize and attend to what's going on inside of us, and find the courage to open up and be fully present with ourselves and in our relationships, only then Can this picture really change? Been there, done that. I say this to you from a very personal place. My nervous system was shaped by my early experiences with my parents, both of whom had a fair amount of conflict and anxiety around emotion and connection. Despite their best efforts and love for me, neither was well equipped to help me or my sisters to develop the best internal roadmaps for navigating emotional connections. My early adult relationships were certainly a testament to this less than ideal conditioning. While my relationships would start off well, within a matter of months they'd become challenging in all too familiar ways. They'd go from a sense of playfulness and willing discovery to a place where I found it harder and harder to get emotionally in sync and feel as though my partner and I were on the same emotional page. Our interactions were often fraught with tension, and conflict always seemed to be right around the corner. I found it difficult to hear and trust my true feelings. Frequently, I felt insecure and unsure. For instance, I'd feel angry or disappointed inside about something that happened between us, but would then doubt myself, talk myself out of it, and avoid addressing the matter directly, not realizing that the feelings continued to live on somewhere inside of me, coloring my experience. Shared happiness was fleeting and not deeply felt, quickly short-circuited by a fear in me of what might happen next, such as that I'd say or do something wrong and mess things up. Although I longed for a sense of closeness and connection, when time alone together with a partner came, I felt restless and found it difficult to be still, to arrive, to be fully present. I didn't realize how anxious I was under the surface, how much fear was pulling the strings and affecting every move I made. Instead, I racked my brain to figure out why it was so challenging. I read a ton of articles and books on relationships and diligently tried to follow their suggestions. I talked about it ad infinitum in years of psychotherapy. I even wrote my doctoral dissertation on fear of intimacy in relationships. Yet no matter how hard I tried to understand and do things differently, I'd continue to slam into the same walls. I'm not sure how much longer I might have gone on this way, but thankfully my journey brought me to the office of a psychotherapist who worked quite differently from what I'd previously experienced in therapy. Instead of trying to figure out what was going on in my head, we focused on what was going on emotionally inside of me. To my surprise, I discovered just how difficult it was for me to be present with my feelings, especially with someone else. While my previous work in therapy helped to illuminate some of the ways in which I'd been impacted by my attachment experiences with my parents, I began to see how the repercussions of that early learning were showing up in the here and now, activating my nervous system, pushing me and pulling me in different directions, and causing me to react defensively. On a deep, unconscious level, I still expected that something bad would happen if I really opened up and expressed myself. The old software in my brain kept giving off warning signals, reining me in, and forcing me down a narrow, well-worn path. If I was going to get anywhere different, anywhere better, I had to find a way to not get swept up in all the old, involuntary ways of responding. I needed to slow down, stay present, and deal with my discomfort, and find a very different way forward. It was challenging at first and scary, but over time, space inside me opened up in which I could step back and observe what was going on, and recognize when my old wiring was getting triggered. Instead of running or spinning around in my head, I learned to lean into and stay with my emotional experience. Gradually, the grip of anxiety eased up, and I began to disentangle myself from my nervous system's old reactions. With the buzz of my anxiety turned down, I was more able to connect with my core self, the self that knew how I felt, what I needed, and what I longed for, the self that wanted to reach out, connect, and be close, the self that my early conditioning had kept in check and covered up. Over time, I found the courage to open up and express my truth and try new ways of relating and connecting with others, ways that felt more aligned with who I really am and how I wanted to be. I see now that this was the work that I needed to be doing, the work that had eluded me for so long. I was learning a new and more authentic way of being with myself and with others, a way that would ultimately enable me to have the kind of relationship I truly desired. I no longer had to be a prisoner of my past. Neither do you. Something new. The main reason that our efforts to do things differently in our present-day relationships don't lead to lasting success is that, unbeknownst to us, the old wiring of our brain is running the show. No matter how hard we try to change our behavior, no matter how much we practice our listening, communication, or conflict resolution skills, if we're not aware of what's going on behind the scenes, sooner or later our nervous system gets activated, and we're up to our old tricks again, no longer in control. The bottom line is this: no real change in how we operate or interact can happen until we recognize and learn how to manage what's going on inside of us. Fortunately, in the last few years, great advances have been made in the field of neuroscience that have changed our understanding of how the brain works, develops, and changes. While we used to think that the hard wiring of our brain was set in stone by the time we reached adulthood, it's now well understood that the brain is plastic, which means it remains malleable over a lifetime and reorganizes or rewires itself in response to new experiences, a process that is known as neuroplasticity. What that means is that we can change the way our brains are wired. You may be wondering how this is accomplished. Well, we can't keep doing the same thing over and over again, as that won't lead to change. That will only reinforce what we're doing already. We need to do something different, something new. We need to have the kinds of experiences that will grow our capacity to be emotionally present with ourselves and others. The kinds of experiences that will help us to develop what I call emotional mindfulness. Emotional mindfulness applies the basic principles of mindfulness, or moment-to-moment awareness, to our emotional experience. Simply put, it's about attending to, being present with, and making good use of our feelings, both with ourselves and with others. Practicing the skills of emotional mindfulness changes the way our brains operate. By focusing our attention in positive and constructive ways, we can free ourselves from old habits and fears, befriend our emotional experience, and develop new ways of relating. Rather than suppressing or acting out, we can find a balanced way of being with our experience in which we can abide and work with what's inside of us and engage with our partners in healthier, more meaningful ways. Cultivating the skills of emotional mindfulness isn't just a good idea. It's now empirically proven to alleviate distress, optimize functioning, and improve our overall mental health. Following the publication of my previous book in 2009, Living Like You Mean It, Use the Wisdom and Power of Your Emotions to Get the Life You Really Want, the emotional mindfulness-based self-help approach that I introduced there and draw from in this book was used as the basis for research conducted through Linköping University in Sweden. Several studies in which participants read about and practiced tools to develop emotional mindfulness found it to be an effective treatment for anxiety, depression, and social anxiety. Pretty cool, huh? In addition, the benefits to our relationships are numerous. In fact, as renowned relationship expert John Gottman suggests, the better a couple is at understanding, honoring, and working with their feelings, the more likely it is that their relationship will be successful and endure. When we're able to navigate our emotional experience mindfully and express our feelings, needs, and desires in ways that inspire our partners to do the same, it draws us together, increases our sense of safety, security, and trust, and strengthens our connection. On more solid footing, we're better able to manage conflict, repair rifts, and get back on track. Emotional presence infuses our relationships with energy and vitality. It also increases our sexual desire. Empathy and compassion grow between us, and we learn to support each other emotionally more freely. When we're able to understand and share our innermost feelings, we're better able to get the kind of caring we need from our partners, and in turn, our partners feel important, valued, and loved. Overall, our relationships are imbued with a deep and abiding intimacy, and as such, are more gratifying and lasting. Being present with and sharing our feelings, needs, and desires with our partners has the power to transform both our minds and our relationships. That is, if we can find the courage to get out of our comfort zone and be present and engage with our partners in a more open and vulnerable way. The challenge we face is in breaking free from the old wiring in our brains that is keeping us from these riches. An inside job. Of course, as the saying goes, it takes two to tango. Our partners are responsible for themselves and the role they play, and we need to collaborate and learn how best to work with each other. But the self that we bring to the dance of love is a crucial factor in our relationship success. Are we showing up with limited emotional and relational skills, or are we flexible and agile, able to navigate and respond to the music of our emotions? Are we bringing our best self to our relationships, or one that is compromised? While who we are and how we manage our feelings is not our fault, after all, our brains are the product of not only our early environment, but also millions of years of evolution and our genetic inheritance. Given the choices that neuroplasticity affords us, isn't it our responsibility to become better stewards of our emotional selves? In order to give our relationships a fighting chance, we need to. As psychologist and co-developer of mindful self-compassion, Christopher Germer explains, transforming relationships with others starts with us. It's an inside job. Besides, does it feel fair or acceptable to you to have to sacrifice your happiness to the wiring of your childhood? Never being able to realize your full potential? Never being able to go the distance in your relationships? Somewhere inside of you, behind the anxiety, fear, guilt, or shame, is your core self, the self that knows your truth, how you feel, what you need, and what you want. The self that can feel and express a full range of feelings, is able to see things clearly and responds accordingly. Your most resourced self, who can deal openly and effectively when times are hard. Your compassionate, loving self, who can be open, close, and connected. The self you were meant to be were it not for some less than ideal early programming. Isn't that the person you want to bring to your relationship? Take a moment or two to ponder this question. What do you imagine your life might be like if you did? Change can begin with just one of us when we do our part to help shift the relational dynamics in a positive direction. We can come to our relationships better equipped to navigate our emotional experiences and give them our all. Personally, I can attest to how much better things go in my marriage of over 20 years when I slow down and attend to what's going on inside of me and do the work to communicate in a mindful way. When we mindfully share our core feelings, we give our partners the opportunity to know us more deeply and to respond in new and different ways. We maximize our relationship's potential to be a place of growth and healing. If we really want our lives to change, if we really want to feel close to our partners and them to us, we have to find the courage to share our deepest selves. The sadness we feel when hurt, the anger we feel when wronged, the vulnerability we feel when insecure, the love we feel when we care deeply, and the happiness we feel when we're loved in return. Now, I'm fully aware that it's hard to try something new. Venturing out of our comfort zone can be anxiety-provoking. When I started to be more open, and hence more fully present in my relationship, it was quite a scary prospect for me. I wasn't really sure how it would go, and at times it filled me with fear. But it got easier. And it's not like I jumped in hook, line, and sinker. It was more of a one-step-at-a-time approach. Developing emotional mindfulness works the same way. It's not an all-or-nothing proposition. It's a process that, with repeated practice, strengthens over time. So if you're feeling a bit daunted by the prospect of doing this, that's very normal. But not to worry, as there's a way of going about it that can make facing our fears more manageable. The solution lies in finding a way to reduce your internal distress enough so that you can get some distance from your embedded patterns of behavior and begin to give both being with your feelings and expressing them a chance. And last but not least, you don't have to do it alone. I'm going to help you. About this book. For over 20 years, I have practiced and taught an attachment-based, emotion-focused model of psychotherapy developed by psychologist Diana Fosha called Accelerated Experiential Dynamic Psychotherapy, AEDP. Hardly a day goes by in which I'm not deeply moved by the power of AEDP to help people break through the barriers that have constrained them and experience a deeper level of emotional intimacy in their lives. I'm writing this book because I want the same for you. I want to help you free yourself from old constraints so that you can bring your best self to your relationships and have the relationships that you really want. Drawing from my practice of AEDP, I'm going to share with you what I teach my clients every day, a proven 4-step approach to overcome fear and connect more deeply with yourself and others. While our focus will be on helping you improve the quality and experience of your romantic relationships, this approach can also be used to help you better navigate and improve all kinds of relationships with people you love, whether they be friends, children, or family members. This book is divided into 3 sections. Part 1 helps you better understand why and how your past is showing up in your present. Part 2 provides the skills you can develop to help manage your emotional experience, separate your core self from your old wiring, and engage with your partner in a healthy, productive way. You'll learn how you can apply those skills in your life and bring your best self to your romantic relationships. Part 3 illustrates what the 4 steps look like in action. Having a better understanding of yourself, your behavior, and how your brain operates can enable you to approach the work of change from a more effective and caring place inside yourself. In Part 1, How We're Wired, we'll start our journey together by taking time to consider some important lessons from attachment theory and neuroscience that help to explain how early relational experiences shape our brains and lay down neural roadmaps that implicitly color our perception and guide our behavior in relationships. We'll examine the emotional environment in which you spent your formative years and the subsequent styles of relating we tend to develop as a way of maintaining some sense of connection and safety with our caregivers. You'll become familiar with patterns of responding we typically get caught up in, so that you can see more clearly how your early programming is getting played out in your current life, and make better sense of your behavior. In Part 2, Updating Our Wiring, I'll teach you a 4-step approach to developing and utilizing the skills of emotional mindfulness. With Step 1, Recognize and Name, you'll learn to identify when old programming has activated your nervous system's threat response, when you've been triggered, so you can begin to break the pattern of habitual responding. In Step 2, Stop, Drop, and Stay, you'll learn to pause and make room, turn your attention inward, and abide with what's happening inside of you without being reactive. You'll learn strategies to ease your discomfort, attend to your inner wounds, and comfortably move through your feelings to a calmer and clearer place. No longer caught in the grip of fear, you can pause and reflect, which is Step 3. This step is about gaining access to the wisdom that comes with being in touch with your core self. Consider a now broader range of options, and choose a course of action that is more aligned with your intentions and values. Lastly, in Step 4, Mindfully Relate, you'll learn how to manage the anxiety that comes with opening up in a new and different way, stay centered and present, and express your truth in a manner that will maximize the likelihood of you being heard and received. All of the chapters in this section include a variety of simple tools and exercises designed to help you develop and strengthen a new way of being with yourself and others. As with any skill, the more you practice, the better you get. In addition, we'll explore the ways in which you can use the skills of emotional mindfulness to turn your relationship around and get back on track. For instance, you'll learn how to maintain emotional balance when engaging with your partner, especially when the going gets tough, so that you can see yourself more objectively and respond more effectively. I'll teach you how to recognize and get beyond your partner's defenses so you can avoid getting caught in old dynamics, open to a broader range of options, and explore healthier ways of relating. You'll also learn how to receive the good stuff that comes your way more fully, gratitude, encouragement, and love, and how to make better use of your innate capacity for empathy and compassion to deepen your connection. In Part 3, Rewiring in Action, we'll visit with 3 people, each with a different attachment style, and take a look at how they work the steps in their lives. Throughout this book, I'm going to share with you stories of people like yourself, people who felt frustrated, alone, and in despair, but who in facing their fears and taking the risk to be emotionally present with their partners, saw their relationships change in ways they hadn't imagined possible. My hope is that you might recognize yourself in some of these stories and feel less alone, that you'll realize that the same can happen for you, and be inspired to give it a try. Mostly, what I want you to know is that with the right tools and regular practice, real change can happen. The capacity for healthy, loving connections is inside all of us, just waiting to come out. Are you ready to find a way to set it free and let it shine? Come with me. Let's do it together. You'll see. Your relationship can be fuller and richer than you ever imagined. You can have the relationship you really desire and are meant to have. You can love like you mean it.